Hi guys, Dr. Ken Nordberg. Kind of a fun YouTube presentation coming up here. My son John and I spent this last weekend scouting together. First trip he went up about 3 weeks ago, and he was alone. I couldn't go on that trip. I had some medical things that had to be taken care of before I could go. But anyway, so finally got up there, and gee, I enjoyed scouting, and we had a lot of fun up there, the two of us together, and camping out on one of our new small tents, and it was great. The weather was beautiful. One of the things the last several years we've had some severe winter weather. We've had some significant losses because of deep snow. Last year was another one of those years where we had this deep snow didn't come till February, but it lasted into April. And but it appears we didn't lose a lot of deer this last year because it was a late start, and they apparently had enough fat stores to get them through until April. So it looks like most of them survived. In fact, the numbers of deer we were seeing in the southern half of my study area looked to be a little bit improved. In the southern half of our study area, deer numbers are down to only 5 per square mile for about 3 years now. It's been really low. And so, in fact, some of the areas that used to be my favorite, best areas to hunt, were devoid of deer for the last couple years. No tracks, nothing in the wintertime. In the snow, it was just kind of dismal. So this year we found deer, not a lot of them, back in the old areas, and that was kind of exciting to find. So we found at least a dozen mature bucks in the time we were up there. Signs of at least a dozen. But that was over about a 3 square mile area. And some spots looked particularly good. I mean, kind of exciting to find. And John's trail cam photographed some deer, some really surprising ones. He got 2 different 10-pointers in one area. And nice big bucks, and that's kind of exciting. And in the areas that I was looking forward to hunting, a deer that had been walking on our tracks on certain trails up there for the last 3 years now, we found signs of a really big buck in that area. And so most of our scouting we were satisfied with what we found by the end of the weekend, and we broke camp and got on the trail going home again just in time before heavy rains hit the area and really strong winds. So it worked out perfectly to get out of there at that time. But now, having these larger bucks to hunt, there's at least 4 in the area that John and I will be hunting. 4 big, dominant breeding bucks. That gives you something to smile about. Can't wait to get up there and hunt. In fact, I've got a quandary there. I'm trying to decide between one spot about 2 miles south of one area where we found a big dominant buck. The 2 of them, here's these big ones, 2 miles apart, and I can't decide which one I want to hunt. But it kind of depends on wind direction too. I've got one section set up for progressive hunting now. We have 4 stand setups for progressive hunting, where that pair of really big 10-pointers that John photographed with his trail cam are found. But we've learned, in the past, you just don't hardly ever have a chance to take a really big buck that you get a picture of on a trail cam in the specific area, because things are so different from the time when you get that picture of that big buck in this area before breeding begins, and where that big buck's going to be after breeding has started. So things really change there. So you have to go with the idea that one of the best places to hunt while breeding is going is where does feed. So we're always looking for feeding areas and keying on those. If if you have snow on the ground, it's a little easier because you can always tell where the big bucks are on any one day, but they aren't going to be there the next day, probably. They'll be somewhere else. So anyway, our scouting gave us enough information, so John and I have plenty to be excited about. Now my two other sons have found similar signs. They're all set now. They got tree stands up ready to go, and we'll have a dozen people in camp, including 2 females this year. And so it's going to be a pretty exciting time for us all in deer camp this year. And we got a new son-in-law that'll be with us this year as well. So big bunch of us this year. So anyway, it looks a little better than in previous years. Last year we weren't so fussy about the sizes of the bucks we took because we knew it was going to really be tough to get 4 really big bucks last year. So we settled. One of my grandsons took a small yearling buck, and but that's the way it works sometimes. But we like our venison too, and taking bucks, we're not hurting the overall population very much. So with that, we're looking forward to a great hunting season this year, and hope to bring you lots of good videos of how things work out during the coming hunting season. So. Yeah, so here's what we found, John and I, this last weekend. Hey guys, take a look at this. We're scouting here, and down here on the ground, we got all kinds of thin-bladed grass. See these little thin-bladed grasses? They're all over the place here. And it's kind of fairly open here. There's a stretch here that's fairly open. And could be an old logging trail, but it's kind of open here. And you start thinking when you see that, especially before November 8th in this country, this could be a feeding area. Because whitetails love that thin-bladed grass. We've got some wide-bladed grass growing in this area, and they don't like that. Maybe it's real coarse. But right away, you know, I was telling you about how to identify feeding areas. You start seeing thin-bladed grass like that, and it might be a possibility. Now, let's take a look around here a little bit and see what other signs we can find. Take a look at this. Well, there's a fawn track right there. It means there's a mama deer around here somewhere. This could be mama deer over here. Let's look over this way. Oh, look at this. All kinds of deer tracks here. Look at fresh and old. Yeah, here's some 3-inch long tracks. That's definitely a mature doe track right there. And look at over this way. Look at all the tracks here. Now, these are not deer that were running. These are deer just walking around here. And the reason they're walking around here is this area around here is full of thin-bladed grasses. This is a graze area for at least one doe family. So now, you look around here, I don't see any browse. Come November, they're not going to be feeding here. Unless the ground is bare, they might, but November 8th, they'll be feeding on browse. No, none of that is browse. I looked all over this place. Now, over that way, there's just a big tall string of jack pines over there. You see them way over there? Get those jack pines way over there on the horizon. Now, down there and to the left is a lowland that's full of red osiers. And I'll bet you anything. One thing we know, back up this way, you see those quaking aspens, no leaves on them now. See that there? Back there to the left and to the right. To the left is an area we know a doe family beds regularly in the woods. And over to the right, there's a little opening up there with tall grasses in it that we know antlered bucks, older bucks, bed. They've done that for years, for 30 years in this area. So anyway, the deer that feed here likely come out of the doe bedding area back this way, and the bucks that come here, especially when a doe is in heat, will come out of that area. And this part up behind us, up here, up on my left, is an old clear cut. and it's being taken over by these wonderful evergreens. Here's a jack pine, a lot of jack pine, a lot of white pine. There's a white pine. Boy, do they make perfect ground blinds for a ground level stand hunter using a stool. This is turning into an area that I've got to hunt this year, for sure. Now, down there where those tall jack pines are on the horizon is a line of beaver ponds. And these deer cross here, go through this area, go down to where those big trees are, not only to feed on red osiers and sugar maple saplings after November 8th, but they go down there to drink water. So I'm sure there's no water in this area, immediate area. It's kind of a long way. But the beaver pond's down there, and that's where they go to drink water. So this is kind of the in-between area. So whereas this might be a good place to catch deer on the move between food and water in their bedding areas, they don't bed down there, or they haven't in the past, might be a good place to catch them. But I want to get down there and take a look at that feeding area. I know they're not feeding on browse now, but I want to look for signs that they were feeding on browse in that area last November and December. I want to check that out. And I want to look for trails made by deer leading to water. I want to look at that too. And they're right in that same area where all that red osier is. You're going to see a whole bunch of that in a little while when we get down there. But isn't this interesting? You want to have signs of a feeding area, and I was telling you, signs of walking deer off trail. You know, there's no trail here. Tracks like that. Sometimes you don't have bare spots. This is one of the few, talk about signs of a feeding area, of a graze area. This is certainly great. This is enough for me to know that this would be a spot where I would want to hunt before November 8th. Now our firearm season starts November 9th this year. But because the deer bed there and they're going to feed down there and water down there and return, you might be able to catch them in between. Be kind of a good place for two people to hunt. One down near the feeding area or watering area, and one up here in the in-between area. We don't want to hunt them in their bedding area. When you do that, those deer will move out of the area, maybe completely abandon their ranges for the rest of the hunting season. So we're real careful about staying away from bedding areas nowadays. But this looks terrific. But the main thing is, that's kind of signs you look for in a feeding area. And you see droppings all over the place, and we've got droppings that you got a week or so ago when you came up to scout that are typical of does and fawns, and that's kind of stuff you look for in feeding areas as well, and we'll show you some of those on this film. So, okay, let's go looking for some browse areas now. Hey guys, here's the first sign I've seen of phase 2 of the rut. That's a fresh antler rub on a single tree next to a deer trail right here. Now, who made this rub? Well, at first glance, I would think, oh, that's made by a yearling buck. But I don't think it is. It maybe is, but I don't think so. Theirs are not usually rubbed so, you got so much bare, well-rubbed wood. That takes a lot of that rough antler area at bases of antlers of older bucks. Now, this is kind of in between. Usually yearling bucks will rub on trees, single ones. They only make about 6 of them during phase 2 of the rut. Usually where their mothers feed, is where I find most of them, off trail. But this one's next to a trail, and it's kind of in between. Yearling bucks will usually rub on tree trunks only only an inch or less in diameter, and they want to bend when they're rubbing. But being this one is so well rubbed, I would say this is made by a 2.5-year-old buck, probably a 6-pointer. And he's got enough of that rough stuff on the basis between that and maybe his brow tines to be able to clean an area as well as this one is clean. Here's a trail cam picture of the buck that made that antler rub. So I'm saying this was made by a 2.5-year-old buck. And this was made this past week. When it started getting really cold up here. A week ago there was snow on the ground up here. Not a lot of snow, but it was all white. And so we were having sub-freezing temperatures a week ago, which would trigger phase 2 of the rut. And this 2.5-year-old buck came along and said, "Oh, I really like the looks of this tree. I'm going to make an antler rub on it, and I'm going to rub some scalp scent on it." And this is meant to tell all the other deer that might come along this area, this trail, that this is the breeding area of me, the 2.5-year-old buck. But of course, that's not going to last. That feeling in that buck isn't going to last very long because the big dominant buck of this area, and there is one, we know he's alive. In fact, I'm hoping to hunt him opening morning. That's what I'm here in this area for. He's not going to allow this 2.5-year-old to be around here. Probably be gone by the week before breeding begins. Here breeding begins on the 3rd of November, so in a couple of weeks this guy will be hiding out somewhere until breeding is over, until there's no more does emitting pheromone into the air during that first of the 3 breeding phases, or breeding periods of the rut. So that's a pretty good one. Kind of a neat sign right there. A beaver's been working there. We got a whole string of beaver ponds right back here. And so deer are coming here to drink. This is a primary drinking area for the deer in this area, drinking these beaver ponds. Yeah, I kind of like this one. Here's a place where a pointy little, maybe a brow tine, gouge this here, kind of sharp on the end here. So, yeah, that's got to be a 2.5-year-old buck's antler rub. So, nice to know. We know about one buck in this area. And we sometimes take bucks this size late in the season. Let's say we got 3 now at the end of our hunting time, and we need another one. Well, one of these come along, we'll take it in that case. So, it's a mature buck, just the same. Okay, well, let's look for more sign. Hey guys, look at this one. This is a red osier. For at least during the the months of November and December, this plant with the red bark, is also called a red bark dogwood, are primary browse food for whitetails in this North Country, and all across Canada as well. And take a look at it. Now we're in a lowland here. There's elders, beaver ponds right there. Kind of wet here. These guys like to have wet ruts. But what you look for this time of year now, deer are not paying any attention to these. They might eat leaves off these plants in the summertime. But right now they're still eating grasses like that thin blade of grass right there on that anthill. That's what they're eating right now. But when you see a lot of dead ends, raggedy ends, brown or black at the end of these tops of these red osiers, where you find this all over the place, that's a sign these bushes were browsed on last November and maybe in December. But this is what you look for. Where you find a lot of these in the woods, and we're going to see a lot of them from here on for a while, you found a primary or a very favorite browse area, the whitetails in this area. So if we want to hunt next to a feeding area during the coming hunting season, and we do that about 90% of the time, this is where we're going to hunt, where we find this kind of sign, these brown tips that have been chewed off of these bushes. Here's some more. And see, this one, these are nice little thin bush, little sprouts here. But come the 8th of November, all these tiny little buds on these things will be much enlarged. And that seems to be one of the things they're looking for before they start feeding on these. But see, these get eaten off, and the bush will just start forming a whole bunch of new stems. And it seems like this is such an ideal browse plant for whitetails because they can chew on them all they want, and these just keep coming back and creating even more stems for whitetails to eat during the following winter. So anyway, this is what we're looking for. Those buck droppings are right there. And right here is a common place for whitetails to come and drink water here, well into November. Oh, look at here. These are smaller clumps. This is smaller clump. Okay, and these are fresher. Here's some fresh clump droppings. They're smaller. I'd say this was made by a yearling buck. Probably within the last 4 or 5 days. They're fairly fresh. Track of a big buck right here. Okay. Oh, these are 1/2-inch clump droppings. That's made by a yearling buck. Hey guys, a little while ago I was talking about coming down by the beaver ponds, you know, where the whitetails around here like to come and drink. We just got done building a blind down the corner here for a south wind, for a trail that goes through the woods here that I cleared, my wife Jean and I cleared many, many years ago, and it's been a popular deer trail ever since, and bear trail. And we keep finding big buck sign here, and this is one of those trails I talked about in an earlier YouTube presentation about deer that walk on your tracks and what it means. Well, one of the places I wanted to build a blind to hunt that deer that's been walking on their tracks is right about here. This is a progressive stand hunting thing. This is the 3rd blind in a row for progressive stand hunting in this area. But this was the last one I was going to make, right here. And we walked up here, and lo and behold, what did we find here? Inch-long droppings, very fresh, made this morning by a big buck. Big buck made those droppings, right there. This guy is worth devoting a hunting season to. So we're going to build that blind just like I wanted to do right behind this spot. It's off trail. The trail is over here about 20 yards away. But this looks like a good spot to be for a north or northwest wind, or southwest even. So I wanted to have, the last blind we built was a natural blind, big bunch of trees fell, and we didn't have to do anything but just trim a few of these hazels out of there so they could get in there without making noise. Put a marker on a tree trunk to get in there. And then I wanted, that one is for a south wind. Southwest, southeast, south. Great, that's the place to be. Well, this one here is about 100 yards away. And this is for a west wind, northwest wind, north wind. So talk about finding the kind of sign you want when you're hunting big bucks. Like I say, there's a lot of times that when that's all I found in the woods to convince me I found a place to hunt a big buck, never seen the buck. I've never seen the buck that made these signs, these droppings, never seen them. And I won't see them until I take aim at them. And hopefully sometime this year, maybe opening morning even, or second morning, who knows. After 4 hunters go down this trail, and this buck waits for him to go by and figures, okay, it's now safe to be active around here. He'll come walking down this way, and I suspect he beds on a little knoll up behind me up here. Come down this way and I'll get him. I've been dreaming about it. Well, this is the clincher right here, these droppings. like I said, that's all I found, and for many big bucks I've taken in all these years, and this could be it again. So right now we're going to get busy, and we got a bunch of trees down here, so it's going to be easy setting up a blind here. We're not going to be making anything that's going to look different to that buck when he comes walking through this area next time. So, but we know he's here. This doesn't mean he's going to walk right here, but he's going to use that trail about 20 yards away often. So that's what I'm counting on. Well, there you go. Hope we get to make some more photos in this area, maybe on that trail 3 weeks from now, about 3 weeks. Won't that be great? So you get a chance to see what the buck looked like that made those droppings. Okay, well, wish me luck, guys. So here we go. Got to get busy now. Okay, hey guys, I'm on we're on a trail. My wife Gina and I cleared out all the dead branches out of this trail many years ago, and it's been a popular trail for deer and moose and bear and humans ever since. Opening day and maybe every day during the hunting season, at least 4 hunters are going to march down this trail to head out in an area west of here to hunt deer. At least one is going to be just on the other side of the beaver ponds over here. And the rest will be further west. But this is the trail where a big buck has been walking on our tracks for 3 years now. And like he doesn't care. And we found evidence, not only evidence of him in this area just a little while ago, but evidence of 2, maybe 3 other deer, bucks, including a yearling buck in this area as well. 2.5-year-old buck for sure. We even found an antler rub made by 2.5. We found another antler rub made by a buck bigger than a yearling. It's made on a little clump, and there's bark roughed off. Fairly wide area across, so the buck had at least a spread of maybe 16 inches, maybe more, on that little bush. That's pretty good evidence of a big deer. He didn't spend a lot of time doing that, but anyway, it was made recently. But what we really have found, the primary deer signs that we found that give us a lot of reason to be excited about hunting here beginning on November 9th are droppings. And we can count on those. We know we can count on those. We've been counting on droppings since the 1960s. And so we're kind of excited about it. So what we've done here today is set up a succession of natural blinds along this trail for progressive stand hunting. Now, we haven't found any definite ground scrapes. We found a few that were mindful of an early ground scrape that a buck will make first time he paws one out, and they're usually not very large, 2 or 3 along this trail, but no antler rubs on this trail, at least up to where we cross a stream to get to the other side. And but those buck droppings are just as valuable a deer sign as anything else we've found in this area, and they're hanging around this corner. There's a little hill over here. My wife and I accidentally found ourselves close to 3 little cubs in a tree with the mama bear with her ears back and looking really fierce at us and coming at us very fast. We had to run like heck down this trail. She didn't chase us too far once we were safe away from her cubs, but scared the heck out of us. And so we call that hill Forebear Hill. It's been called Forebear Hill ever since. And I suspect those bucks that of all these droppings we've been finding bed on that Forebear Hill. And And there's patches all around this area with good browse in it where they come to feed. And there's water, a set of string of beaver ponds here for them to come and drink. All valuable things. But very obviously, they've been spending time in this corner down here, and that's what I've been thinking about this last year, about hunting in that area. And when we come down here, and sure enough, here they are. At least 3, maybe 4 different antlered bucks have been spending time in that area. Here's some more trail cam photos of 3 different bucks that have been spending time in this area. Come opening weekend, it might only be 1, but it'll be the big one for sure. So that's kind of exciting. But we got a progressive set of stands, and another one further back, actually 4 different stands for hunting this particular buck and setting up. So, but that's the way it looks like this area right now. We've got lots of other areas we have to scout and prepare before we're done up here this weekend. So we'll be moving on now, but we're about done here. But on the way back, I'll stop. People have been wondering what kind of blinds, what our blinds look like at ground level. So we'll stop and we'll give you a look at what our blinds look like, and they're natural blinds. So we'll do that on the way out. So we'll see you again soon this afternoon. We expect to find lots more to talk about. Oh, this is our 4th blind. We added a few evergreens out on top here that kind of breaks up your outline of your head here. But this is all a deer will be able to see of me, is my head sticking up like this. I'll be wearing my camel head net, camel cap like this one. Oh, more droppings made by the buck. Oh, here's one of my fluorescent tacks that I'll be following to get to this 4th blind. I have to lean under this leaning elder to get there, but we don't want to change this. We don't make any dramatic changes in the vicinity of the blind. Well, this is our 3rd blind. We added a few sticks here to hide my silhouette here, and but my head will be about this level. We expect deer to be coming in this direction from that way, and that way. Well, this is the ground level stand site number 2. And we added evergreen boughs to fill it in down below, which works just fine. Whitetails never seem to be bothered by that. So you can start with a few poles and add a bunch of boughs, and you've got a good blind. Hey guys, just heading north toward a couple of stand sites, a progressive stand site trail, and spotted some typical signs up here this year with our bumper crop of red oak acorns. You see these red oak leaves here, and here's some of their acorns. They're all over in here, and here's some half-inch droppings. Yeah, half-inch droppings. Made by a mature doe or a yearling buck, but obviously those signs go together this time of the year, and we keep watching for signs like that during our coming hunting season. If these signs aren't covered by snow by then at places to hunt, so we know our deer up here are feeding on acorns big time right now. Scouting the edge of a big old clear cut. It's still a good feeding area. It still has a lot of good food in it. We found some old sizable droppings made by a pretty big buck here, about 1.1 inches, 1.25 inches. still looking for fresh signs. Found a nice spot, well-used deer trail back of me here along the edge of this clear cut, which always forms in time around any feeding area. And so found a big boulder back there that looked like it'd be a good place for a natural blind. So I decided it didn't need any care. And from there I can see out into this clear cut in this area here. Any deer wandering through this area I'll be able to see it real easy. And there's other signs too besides these old droppings. Right here in the same place we have plenty of browse, and like this plant right here, this is a sugar maple. It's gotten to be a little bigger, but the new growth is always red. And you look at these things, there's dead, jagged ends on the dead tips on this sugar maple all over the place. Here, and look at here, how many tips have been eaten off of that. Well, come November 8th, whitetails will be feeding on this same bush here along the edge of this clear cut. And there's lots of these here. You look all around, there's sugar maple, young sugar maples growing all over this old clear cut. It makes it a magnet for whitetails during feeding periods. You see those gray bark trees there? Right there in the foreground, those are all sugar maples. And the tips of the branches are red. Okay. Now, the whitetails will go after this size of a bush, which they can reach, but great food. So lots of them here. Another reason for having a stand site back in there. You can't even see it. There's a nice boulder just the right size to sit behind. And on top of it is a young evergreen growing. Provide natural camouflage for my head while I'm sitting here. And between me here and that stand site is a really well-used deer trail. Like I say, that's real common around a whitetail feeding area that's been there for a while. So whitetails travel those a lot. I know they were doing it last year. So anyway, this looks real good. But we want to look around a little more. I want to find some fresh signs of a large buck in the area. Okay, take a look at this. Really fresh, dropping, clumped, 5/8 inch, 2.5-year-old buck. About, I would say 50 yards from that blind I just set up. You know, I mentioned that about a week ago we had snow up here, and that snow would probably trigger a flurry of making antler rubs and ground scrapes. And I've showed you a few antler rubs so far. Well, here's a really good ground scrape as well, right down here. Now it's a little dull on the surface, meaning that buck has not renewed this for maybe 48 hours, something like that. And typically, if it's made by an older buck, it'll be right under overhanging branches, like on this red oak right here. You see, they're hanging over the, and later on, when he starts renewing this scrape regularly, he'll be rubbing scalp musk on this branch here, and this branch, and on this tree. He might even bust up that tree a little bit. But there's one of them, our early buck ground scrape. And close to this area, this old clear cut, and it's full of browse. There's hardly any grass here, thin-bladed grass. It's got a lot of wide-bladed grass. Whitetails don't like that. Ours don't. And so they're not here to eat browse. And normally in that browse area, you don't see a lot of deer signs this time of the year. But so far, we found deer signs made by a 2.5-year-old buck, really fresh, probably this morning. Those droppings here next to this scrape are made, probably within the last 48 hours as well. They're still shiny. So this is really looking good. This stand site I just decided to use, I think might be, well, I think there's an excellent chance it's going to be productive this year for taking a buck. So, yeah, I like this. Well, in this particular browse area, there's not a lot of grays, so like I said, you wouldn't expect to see a lot of deer signs in a place like this now. But after November 8th, it'll be full of deer signs. Hey guys, take a look at this bed right here, this deer bed. You see those flattened leaves? Those deer wouldn't be flattened if a deer hadn't been laying there just in the last hour, maybe minutes. We probably disturbed that deer. It's hard to tell exactly how long that bed is, but it's not bad. I'll bet it's at least 45 inches, maybe a little longer than that. And the reason I think that is because right here are some 3/4 inch clump droppings. Those are droppings made by a 3.5-year-old buck. And that's the buck that made that ground scrape that we just looked at. How about that? This spot is looking better all the time. And a small ant rub recently made. It's still damp. It looks like a yearling buck antler rub. I took a yearling buck in this vicinity a couple years ago on the other side of this stand of timber, and the buck was bedding in this area. This was his place to hide from the big dominant breeding buck. And that was getting to be I think it was the last day of the season, next to the last day. And I decided we need that for some good sausage. But there's another one here, that's for sure. So there you go, guys. How's that for scouting? Hopefully what you learned from these videos, out there in the field, will help you in your scouting. There's still plenty of time to get out there. You want to get your scouting done if at all possible, 2 weeks before your deer hunting season begins. Get in there, find what you can, select your stand size, then get out of there. Don't keep putting trail scent in your hunting area after you decide where you want to hunt. Let everything get back to normal. All your scents have disappeared. Deer are doing normal things, so they're more predictable on opening day and thereafter. So, but anyway, there's a lot of variations of what you can find in the woods while scouting before hunting season. And it depends on whether you're scouting in deep wilderness like we are, or in farm area, or mixed farm area like across most of Wisconsin, places like that where you got lots of woods and lots of farms mixed in together. So there's a lot to know about scouting, but scouting, is the real hunt, actually. And the hunting part is mostly just sitting there in the woods waiting for whatever you expect to happen, and the better you are at scouting and recognizing little things, you notice the little things you're finding, little droppings here and there, and maybe a track or two here and there, and here's some grasses, and here's some browse that was fed on last year to November and December. I keep saying November and December. Sure, they eat the browse all winter long, but about Christmas time, all of our deer migrate to wintering areas. And some of them travel, about 6 miles to get to their wintering area. Some of them don't travel that far, but they aren't found in where they're found all spring, summer, and fall after Christmas until snow melt in spring. They're in different areas then. So these signs we look for were made, like in browse areas, were made during November and December. That's why it's limited to that time. Okay, but all these little things you look for when you're scouting, and the way you should scout before the season, the way you scout during the hunting season, are two different things, very different things. And the differences, of course, are all covered in great detail in my newest book, The Whitetailers Almanac 10th edition. So if you don't have it yet, get it soon. The sooner you do, the better your hunting is going to be. I promise you that. Gotta remember now, I always autograph the books. to whoever sends, orders one. I always take time. We've done a whole bunch of them. We're getting a lot of orders right now, and it's getting hard to keep up with it. I got a lot of messages in my computer to answer, guys wanting to know about what they're finding out in the woods, what should I do, and all that kind of thing. And I'm trying to answer them all. But, it won't be long. I'm going to be hunting too. I'm going to be spending some significant time in the woods. So if your order comes after I'm gone, now we've got it set up so we can get orders continuing to go out, and I will sign the book, but they won't be to your specific name. I'll pre-sign a bunch of them. But you might expect a little bit delay in getting your books, and for a while there your name won't be in the book, but it'll still be autographed. I will have something in there with my name on it, so I can look forward to that. So, but if you're going to get one and you're actually get it, I would advise you to send for one soon, so you can get the things done the way I like to do it, and the way you would like it too. So, okay, well, thanks for watching, guys. But before you go, be sure to poke that red subscribe button down below there. And like I say, that's important to me. It's important because the more of you that do that, the better my chances of being able to continue to provide you with these hunting seminars I've been giving you. And you know by now, these are good ones, really good. And I'm 84, I've been hunting for 74 years, and I've been doing research with whitetails, hunting-related research since the 1960s. So what you're getting from these seminars, it might be really unusual, but this is the real thing. There's no messing around with goofy ideas in my books or my seminars. This is the kind of stuff that is really going to make a difference on your hunting success in the future. So poke that button, and poke the thumbs up button too. That's important too. The more of those kind of numbers I get, the happier YouTube and Google are with what I'm doing. So, thanks again, guys. See you soon, and good luck. Be sure to visit my website. Here's the link. Here you'll find links to my blog posts, my Twitter account, my YouTube account, my Amazon store with links to my ebooks, my son's eBay store, a money saver if you're ordering from Canada or other countries, my website bookstore, and much more.